So I was gifted these vintage crochet pattern magazines for Christmas, and they're all from like the early 80s, from like 1983, 1984. The earliest I have is 1981, and then 1999. And I thought it would be super fun to look through some of the magazines, see what kind of patterns they've got, and then make a couple patterns with you guys. Thanks so much to Hooks and Needles for sponsoring this video, but we will talk more about them later. This is one of the first books that caught my eye. It's a book of edgings, and it's got all these really pretty edgings in it. They're so intricate and detailed. I just love them, but I think I'm gonna hold off for them now because I'm really interested in this one from 1982. It's old time crochet patterns, and these were considered old in 1982. Like this pattern from 1916. It also has instructions for like different crochet stitches, for baby outfits, and I really like these pot holder patterns. They have two different ones. There's a checked pot holder and then the plaid pot holder, so I'm gonna keep this in mind. I might come back and make one of these. So here we have the Swap Society, and this is so funny. It's people who are looking for different patterns. They wrote into the magazine specifically asking for patterns that they really wanted, they couldn't find anywhere, and it just really got me thinking, like, how convenient it is for us nowadays to just find patterns on Etsy or on Instagram. We find free patterns all the time. The next magazine is called Crochet Fantasy, and there's already some really promising pictures. Like, look at how pretty these pillows are. They are so cool. I would love to make something like this one day, but I just don't really have like the time or the resources right at this moment. But I love the pictures in this book. They're so pretty. The instructions in this are way different than I'm used to, and I have never used a crochet chart before, so this is like looking at a different language for me. But let's go back to these checked pot holders that we found earlier. I think that this is going to be simple enough for me to follow, and I'm going to use cotton yarn in white and pink, and then also a 3mm hook. The materials say to use a number 0 hook, and I honestly don't know what that is. I tried to look it up and I could not find anything, so that's why I just decided to go with the 3mm hook. Anyways, this pattern was pretty simple. It had me start out with a chain, and then when I turn and go back, that's when I switch to the pink color, and then I'm basically alternating between white and pink as I go back and forth over the chain. So I feel like this was a really good pattern to start with. It was also easy to read. I mean, it was very different than the patterns that we find on Etsy nowadays, but I wasn't left confused or wondering what I was supposed to do next. It was pretty self-explanatory, especially if you're familiar with doing color changes. All right, so the squares are all done. This is what the front looks like, and I think that it looks pretty good. You can't really see the white that's being carried through the pink as much as I thought that you would. And then here's what the back looks like. You can see the white poking through a little bit more, but obviously that's expected. So I am pretty happy with how it turned out. Now I need to do the border, embroider the flowers, and then it also wants me to use something called a bone ring and attach it to the pot holder, but I don't have one of those. So I'm gonna skip it and just go straight into the embroidering and the border. Now the pattern said to use something called a lazy daisy, and I was too lazy of a daisy to look up how to make one. So I just followed the picture as best as I could, and I thought that I did a pretty decent job. Then I wove the ends in and cut the tail, and so here's what it's looking like from both the back and then here's the front as well. Now, because filming takes absolutely forever, I decided to finish embroidering and doing the border off camera. So here was what it was looking like before I wove in all the ends. And in the end, it was extremely wrinkly, so I blocked it, which I have never done this before, and I'm glad that I did because it turned out good, but I don't have any supplies or anything, so I just got it wet and then set it on my bathroom counter and let it dry overnight. And here it is, fully dried. It turned out great. It's completely flat. I think it looks really good, and I can't wait to use it in my kitchen. And I did not think that the pattern was too difficult to follow. I thought it was a perfect first vintage pattern for me to try. And here it is from the back. Before we make the next vintage crochet pattern, I want to talk about the sponsor of this portion of today's video, and that is Hooks and Needles. Hooks and Needles is a monthly subscription box that allows you to choose between crochet, knitting, or amigurumi kits. And here I have the first of my crochet kits. Each box comes with a useful magazine that includes 3 crochet patterns for different skill levels. Plus, it comes with tips, tricks, and additional activities. The box also includes high-quality yarn, all of the necessary tools you'll need for the projects, and also a free gift. This month's gift is a pair of scissors, and these are so beautiful. They're gold-colored, and they kind of remind me of a bird. Oh, they are swan scissors, so that would make sense. Now, I chose to make the most advanced pattern, and that's this basket. I've never used these stitches before. They're having me use a front and back post stitch. So I'm super excited to learn this new technique. And that's something that I love about the Hooks and Needles box. It gets me to make things that are out of my comfort zone, because if you know me, then you know that I have the most experience making amigurumi. So this is definitely something that's new to me. And here's the finished product. I love it so much. It's so rewarding to just whip something up like this with your own 2 hands. I mean, yesterday, this was just a pile of yarn. So if you'd like to try out Hooks and Needles, I will leave a link in the description. Plus, you can use my discount code Nikki20 for a 20% discount off of your first box. Thank you so much to Hooks and Needles for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now, let's get back to the vintage crochet patterns. Now I'm gonna attempt this simple flower, and I say attempt because it is a little intimidating. Like I said earlier, I've never used one of these charts before, and the pattern has you doing 3 chains instead of the first double crochet, 4 chains instead of the first treble crochet, which I'm not really used to. I'm kind of spoiled by the continuous round patterns that I use for amigurumi. But like I said, I've never made anything like this before, and I think the design is really pretty, so I want to give it a shot. And honestly, working through this, it was kind of confusing. And there were a lot of parts where it felt like you were just kind of expected to know to skip certain stitches here and there, or to insert your hook into certain parts of a chain. It was definitely confusing, and I have a lot more respect for the people who actually did the patterns out of these magazines back in the day. Now here it is after 5 or 6 rounds, and it's actually looking pretty good. You can kind of see the petals that are starting to form, and it's so big already. It's bigger than my hand. All right, I finished a couple more rows, and it's starting to curl up on me a little bit. I'm not really sure why, but I'm just gonna keep going. Also, it looks pretty good. You can really see the flower. Let me show you what I mean about it being confusing. So right here, it says 1 treble crochet in the loop of the 4 chains. So it doesn't tell you which loop. There's 4 different chains, and so you have to look at this chart to figure out where to do it, and it looks like it's kind of right in the middle of those 4 chains. So while it is doable, you can definitely figure it out. It's just quite a bit more complicated than the more modern patterns. Well, I moved to the couch for a little bit, and my cat laid on me, so there's no way I'm getting up at this point. And I laid the doily right on top of her. She actually likes that it's her little blanket, but it's looking pretty good, and the pattern is making more sense to me. So we've run into a bit of a problem. this thing will not lay flat. I think the rim of it is a little bit too small, and so I literally cannot get this thing to lay flat without curling up on itself. And I'm pretty upset because I've spent many hours on this thing, way more than I would with an amigurumi, like a plushie. And I also had to frog it a few times. So I've spent so much time on this thing, and the fact that it's not coming together is really a letdown. So I'm really sorry, guys. This is not how I wanted this to turn out at all, but I'm kind of at the point where I'm out of time. I think what happened is I don't have enough chains here. You see how the little holes, they start to get like more holes as it goes up. So I think at some place I missed some. It's just really hard to keep track of where you're at, and they don't provide the number of stitches that are supposed to be in the row. So it can get confusing when you're trying to follow this really intricate pattern plus count at the same time, and I just failed at it. But I would definitely like to come back at some point and try to fix this. I might have to frog the whole entire thing and redo it all. But I'm really glad I gave it a shot, and I have a bunch more magazines, so let me know down in the comments if you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of the magazines, I can probably do a deeper dive into some of them if you're interested. But that's it. Here are the finished products, and I say finished in quotes because obviously my doily did not get finished. But I am really happy with how the pot holder turned out. I think it's pretty, and I will use that on a regular basis for sure. Anyways, here are the two final products. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if you want me to try making more vintage patterns. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.